Hello and welcome to another episode of the CyberDudes Podcast. It's a reclined one today because with everything that's gone on this last week, how can you not sit back and try to relax? My name's Robin Thornton, as always, joined by Omar Sangarima. How are you doing, Omar?
Hola.
You're not reclined.
No, this is my reclined pose though. This is me relaxed.
What's you when you're alert?
Yeah, it's probably a little scarier. So mugshotty, probably. A little Nick Nolte or Gary Busey-esque. That's who I was looking for.
How am I doing today, Gary Busey? You're doing great. Good, well, I'll keep it up.
Utah, give me two.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to think what is Gary Busey's best role. It's got to be between Point Blank or Under Siege, and I'm just not entirely sure which one.
I feel Gary Busey's next role is always the next one. So.
No, his best role, not his next one.
No, I don't think
he's having a next one. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Always,
all right. Enough of Gary
Busey.
Busey.
Give me more Busey. Damn
it. Today, we are joined by 30-year industry veteran and cyber czar and former CIA advisor, Dr. Eric Cole. He'll be talking to us about Elon Musk's access to US Treasury systems and why it's more than just having access to your social security numbers. We'll also be discussing the value of digital detoxes, as well as a little chat on the film I Love to Hate. And if you don't know what that is, stick around to find out. Elsewhere in the news, Omar is going to be bringing us the WTF moments of what is going on in US cyber ops attitudes to Russian cyber aggression and updates on Burmese pig butchering scams. We're not calling them romance scams. It's bullshit to change the name. It's pig butchering. I'll be covering Apple's latest middle finger to the British government and how a Disney software engineer got his entire password manager sprung by hackers. And despite what Wall Street Journal's headline says, it was not 1Password's fault. This dude did it to himself. But before we do that, Omar, have you noticed your grocery bills being a little bit painful of late? Hating it every time we fill up the car?
What are you talking about? We got promised to get them lowered, so obviously.
No, yes,
happening.
Well, this is it. We can't lower the egg prices. Only one man has claimed that he can do that, and he hasn't yet. So in the meantime, we can help put a little bit of cash back in your pocket. Yes, this is an advert, but it's one we think that you will like. Omar has not been primed to this as well, so
this is my genuine reaction. Although I definitely smelled it once you were like, "Hey man," I was like, "Yo, drink your Ovaltine." Like, okay, I got you.
This one we'll think you'll like anyway. So the Amex Blue Cash Prefer card, this little bugger here, gives you 6% back on every trip to the supermarket and 3% back at the pump to lighten the financial load. Not only that, but if you sign up using the referral link down in the show notes, you can get a $250 statement credit by spending $3,000 in the first 6 months, which isn't hard if you put your groceries on it. It's about $500 a month.
Yeah.
If my math is correct. Why are we hawking?
2 months ago.
About 2 months, yeah. Well, no, it's insane. Why are we hawking this great offer? Well, obviously we do get a kickback too. But rest assured, every cent of that kickback will go right back into improving the show. So it is worth everybody's time for doing this. To take advantage of this offer, do go have a look for our referral code down in the show notes. If the Blue Cash Preferred is not something that entices you, there's a couple of other cards down there as well that there are offers for. And once again, all of those kickbacks will go back into the show. And if you're not doing so yet, please do take a minute to like this episode and subscribe to the channel whilst you are perusing those notes down there. Shameless promotion out of the way.
That's
the news. Omar, do you want to dive into what the hell is going on with this whole Russia thing? And
oh god,
it's Hegseth trying to do his job badly?
I think, well, first and foremost, it's out of the record. Our good friends at Recorded Future, shout out to y'all. Maybe we can get some MasterCard promos if we keep shilling for a great outlet for them. But they just keep bringing the heat. Good intel, good threat hunting tools. But that aside, so that's the source. I really don't understand, or maybe I do, and I'm just sad about it. It's just, is it weird that it's the same sort of time where like the Command and Conquer source code got open sourced, which is funny. Go take a look at some of the comments in there if you want to see some funny development things there. But we're just straight up saying we're standing down on planning for Russia now. We're good friends, Robin, I'd like to say. And so I think it's not going to piss either one of us off to know that, my home country, your now home country, but spies on your previous home country, right? Your country of birth here. Everyone, like the Five Eyes, spy on each other. What the hell are we doing saying we're going to give Russia some sort of wild pass that we don't give to anyone else on this planet, and probably some of the folks on off planet that we just haven't copped to yet. Shout out to the Blink-182 guy who had it right the whole time. But this is just bonkers to me. I don't quite understand it. The best way I've heard it described over the weekend, shout out to Scott Galloway and Jessica Tarlov's, Raging Moderates podcast there, where I think it's just two.
I need to watch that.
Oh, dude, one autocrat and one like budding autocrat trying to carve up the globe. Right? Very. I'll be a bit of a cheeky bastard here and go, very East India Company vibes. Just like you get this, there you go, you get that. Other than that, there's no explanation, none, zero whatsoever. This is probably the straw that broke my back. We're a month in to this nonsense, and there's just no other angle that I can see here that's not straight up our guy is trying to just line his pockets. He's trying to get that oligarch money just funneled into his veins. This is madness.
Yeah, and it's especially irritating because the last 4 years has very much been CISA doing everything that they can to secure business. It's not necessarily like the closed cyber border piece from a US perspective, and sure. Dr. Cole talks about this in the interview later about how open the US is from a cyber and internet perspective. But the focus was on very much like let's make sure that everybody's got kind of individual resiliency, strengthen business, strengthen government, strengthen individuals, so that it's an ecosystem that you can get into, but you find it very, very difficult to get anything out of anyone. Now, my impression was after the election, the change of tone was going to be, well, no, we're going to go for strengthening the borders, and then we're going to go very much more nation state. This is completely the opposite.
Yeah.
This is we're not actually going to deal with the nation states. We're not going to deal with one specific nation state who we claim to have absolutely no sort of affiliation with. But I don't know. I mean, long story short, the head of the Pentagon is bringing down the defenses and making it open season. That's my take. That's my
against a adversary, against a multi-headed hydra that has just consistently shown it's willing to fuck anyone at any given time should the dollars make sense. That's it. That's base brass tacks. So it's not that I want to sit here and sing Kumbaya. That's why I started the rant with the Five Eyes spying each other. All right,
Mhm.
toughen up, put a helmet on. We try not to get caught doing it. We try not to have it be international incident wise like it was a few years ago when our hands were in the cookie jar there. Sorry. But this just, this is madness to me. Especially working where we work, where we see essentially on a daily basis folks that are given free reign to basically be privateers from that part of the world, as long as they don't touch any of Daddy Putin's interests or his friends at the
Mhm.
time's interests. That really, I'll eat my words and I will publicly go full retraction status here. If over the next 6 months, we see a complete falling off the table of incident rates or pings
Oh,
or scans or attempts from
I'm
Russia.
happy to be.
If that's what this means,
Mhm.
I'm full of shit and I should go back to sticking to playing Risk because that's where my geopolitical minds my powers live there. And by the way, I cheat at that game, so there you go. But if that's not the case here, then there is zero reason to be doing this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm I'll be the first person to eat my words over this if I have to, but this makes, on the face of it, this makes no sense whatsoever.
Not for the
Telling
country's interests.
telling US cyber ops to stand down against your biggest enemy in cyberspace. And for what it's worth, I think they're only slightly ahead of China
Yeah, and I would
with
say
this.
this, one of the biggest, and also with the, I gotta give it to the CCP in a weird way that at least their operations seem to be a bit more run straight up run by the government. It's not like the mob that's
Mm,
just given a license to steal
mm,
by the home country. And so I don't know if it's a six in one hand, half dozen in the other sort of situation, but just the the flavor of sleaze that surrounds a lot of those operations that come out of Russia or that are okayed, and where we've both seen they have office buildings because this is a business over there and
mhm,
it's allowed to thrive again so long as it doesn't touch Putin's pockets or any of his friends' pockets and whoever friends are in the given week, which that shifts day to day,
mhm.
week to week. Ask ask poor homeboy from that militia that magically disappeared. It's
Prigozhin.
yes,
I mean,
exactly. So
he didn't magically disappear. They shot his plane down.
I know that's what just they blew him sky high.
Mm,
So this just you can tell that I'm fired up because like I'm having arguments in my head with people that I know would go, but, and I just this is one of those where it's like, nah, bro.
mm,
There's no explanation for this
no.
outside of some shady dealings on the. What makes me worried here, and I was ranting about this morning on the way to breakfast with my wife and my kid, was if if this is the sort of order being given, what ridiculousness is transpiring between interests in both if they don't want even the possibility of an errant whistleblower or someone in our apparatus spying something that they don't want to be revealed. This is insane to me.
Mm. Hey, moving on. Burma. Tell us about the people on the border who've been in
Oh,
there.
this one's really kind of sad as well. And thank you for bringing the dog into it because it's gonna get doom and gloom here.
Yeah, he wants to join in.
There you go. He heard there was pigs being butchered, and he's like, I like me bacon. I mean, mazel. So
He is a piggy.
he's a beautiful, beautiful puppy there. Um, so you you've mentioned this a lot, and I've seen two different sources, right? So I'm going to give another shout out to the Record, but also the New York Times
Mhm,
did a really good expose on this, or long form as they're more gravitate towards here. Not like the New Yorker, but kind of in between. There's obviously it's big business. The poor souls are suckered or lured into essentially slavery by promises of well-paying IT jobs or service industry jobs. And you go in, next thing you know, if this was a Netflix special, right? Or if this was like a like a limited series, it'd be terrifying. And I think it'd be an international hit on the level of like a Squid Games if they did it right. You're struggling, you're trying to pay your bills, you're trying to help your family, you answer an advertisement for a job, and then you go and suddenly you're literally chained to your desk and intimidated, and your family's threatened and whatnot, and you have to then generate money for what essentially are militias, gangs, cartels, take your pick. Now, the aspect of this that really drew my eye and had me shoot it to you, outside of the fact that I know this is one of your soapboxy ones, right? Get me started on Russia or China, get you started on pig butchering. It's the same group that has ties to the pig butchering apparatus is supposedly the group that rescued a bunch of these folks that are now stranded at the border. And then that's the aspect that also tops off this shit cake. It's just that poo cherry on the shit cake, where they've supposedly been rescued. Let's put aside from the fact that I think the rescuers are double dipping. It's so they've been rescued, and now there's a migrant crisis on the border of Thailand here, and folks are displaced. Folks are obviously not being put up in the Ritz-Carlton while they await repatriation. And you have another just set of unfortunate events for a group of people that have already been put through quite the ringer. What are your thoughts? There's a lot there, but
I don't really know. It's just a very bizarre sort of scenario, and somebody needs to take ownership of this from a law enforcement perspective.
Ain't gonna be us.
I don't think the Burmese are going to do it.
No.
The Chinese probably.
The Chinese went in and got their folks there. That's one of the groups, like handfuls of Chinese citizens. China went in and said, "No, these are ours."
Yeah.
Deal with whatever.
And they don't like that kind of stuff being. There's a reason that this gets conducted in North Myanmar anyway, because the Chinese don't like these scams being run from their territory, but they also don't like the perception that this is their people running this. It is these gangs that are from China that are doing it, largely outside of the relative purview of the CCP. But I mean, I think it's one of these things where it's like, I'm not a legal expert, but I think the only authorities who really can solve this and repatriate these people to their homes is the governments of where these people come from. India, Pakistan, maybe Sri Lanka, I think a few of them as well. And that's the only real thing that can sort that out. If they're in Thailand, then maybe the Thais need to arrange some of this. It's unfortunate that they got to deal with it because it's not their problem or not their fault. But, well, it's not their fault, but it's now their problem.
Yeah. And meanwhile, while they all figure it out, folks are living probably in some abhorrent conditions and waiting for some legal limbo to be dispersed.
Weird.
Awful.
Very weird.
Yeah.
But yes, awful indeed. So just remember, folks, whenever you get those random text messages out of the blue that saying hi and just trying to rope you into any sort of a conversation, it is likely these people it's a modern day slavery thing that they are kind of forced into.
Straight up.
It's just their job. It's not a job that they want, but they're doing a job.
Yeah.
Take heed simply to ignore them. Okay. News-wise, let's move on. So what I've got, this is a quick one. I'll pay passing mention to, but earlier this week, Apple decided to throw the middle finger up at the UK government, which is, I didn't think I would say this as a Brit, but that's a good thing. Because the British intelligence services were trying to have Apple install a backdoor into advanced data protection, which is the iCloud encryption functionality. Apple did not want to do this because backdoors are a bad thing. If you put in a way to circumvent security for the good guys, you can bet your ass that you leave it long enough and one of the bad guys will find it, and then there's no point in having the security anymore. So rather than compromise their global offerings, because Apple, regardless of what you think of them, put their best foot forward from a privacy perspective, and this was a good PR move for them to tell the British government where to go with this one, because they just removed advanced data protection from the UK market. So now no one with a UK iCloud account can actually use advanced data protection. I guess the British government get what they want with regard to that, because it means that they can go snooping around in iCloud for people's stuff, regardless of whether they have an encryption or not, because they don't have the encryption. So it's a win-win for everybody, really, except for British Apple customers. Apple don't necessarily get what they want, but they don't have to comply with the order. The government gets what they want because they can go snooping around in people's stuff, and it's just everybody else who loses out. There's been a similar thing happening, and it seems that it's a bit of a concerning trend, though, that's going on in Europe with this, because the Swedes have also asked Signal to put in a backdoor as well. And the French are also doing something similar with VPNs as well, wherever that story is, if I can find it. Privacy tech firms warn France's encryption and VPN laws threaten privacy. That's from Bleeping Computer. And we have Signal may exit Sweden if government imposes encryption backdoor. I get the desire from governments for this, because criminals do hide in encrypted chat and encrypted systems, but compromising everybody else's security for the sake of grabbing the thin end of the wedge of a population who do criminal things is not the way to do it. Do law enforcement better.
First and foremost, I want to say shout out to Signal. They've been consistent about their stance on this. They put their money where their mouth is as well, regarding if a country asks us to do this, we're just going to exit that market. We're not going to compromise on what is essentially one of the foundational elements of not only their value prop, but I get the sense, reading a lot of Signal materials, that this is what the founders feel. Right, that this is they're very big ties to the Electronic Frontier Foundation on the United States side. Like they walk the talk here, so they're heroes in that sense. I still don't understand, and as we'll see right in the discussion with Dr. Cole that's coming up after this, there's just not enough tech savvy folks in the law making arena that understand you can't make a backdoor that's selective. The very nature of what you're asking to be done to circumvent the security and protections of a system or an application will, by its very nature, allow anyone that stumbles onto it to circumvent the security and privacy controls of said application. So I wanted to A, shout out Signal, B, touch on that, C, couple C and D here, I guess, for me. One, this is the only move that Apple could have done. Folks, there was a bit of a backlash against, Apple likes to talk a lot of shit and then it doesn't back it up. No, this was the only move for Apple to do that would have at least been somewhat consistent with its previous stances on personal privacy. And also it's realized that it's a market differentiator. Right? This is one of those places where market forces are actually, not just running rampant, they're running in a direction that's good for most, if not all folks. You can't bend the knee in one instance and then be selective. Now, I will also want to shout out that, or point out that this does suck for, Brits, right? Folks in the UK sphere, but it also sucks for anyone that does business with them. That's one thing I want to foot stomp before we leave the topic. If you have, and this is, of course, a seed planted in me by the fine folks at IONS when they did their bulletin of this a couple of days ago. If you have business partners, or if you do business, or if there's a spur of whatever conglomerate you work for that does business in this area, you have to understand now that your threat model has changed. That one of the fundamental underpinnings, maybe even potentially one of those mitigating set of controls that you had, right? That you're like, listen, if all else fails, at least the shit's encrypted, right? As it moves, inside of this sphere, that's no longer the case. And also, just as a side note there, I cannot stand reading MPs' tweets about, encryption's only used by pedophiles. Listen, folks, yes, it is used by them, unfortunately, but
it's also used by MasterCard, Visa.
But like regular folks,
encryption's used by everybody.
Anybody that wants to do any sort of business over the internet, you want to get me started on what may be kicked off, credit card security on the internet, that's a different story, right? You know where I'm going there, Robin. But at the end of the day, it's a net positive for society. And as you said very eloquently, very succinctly, just do law enforcement better. You don't need to be, the same sort of thinking with, geofence warrants. Just be better cops. Then you don't need to be trampling on privacy or rights in order to, cast a dragnet that then eventually makes up for the fact that, your investigative abilities are for shit. Sorry.
Definitely. Okay, moving on. Our final story before we get into that interview with Dr. Eric Cole from ZDNet. Hackers stole this engineer's 1Password database. Could it happen to you? Software engineer for the Disney company unwittingly downloaded a piece of malware that turned his life upside down. Was his password manager to blame? No, decidedly not, because in February of last year, Matthew Van Andel downloaded a free AI tool, alarm bells are ringing, on the computer in his home office, and it turned out to be an info stealer, so basically a piece of malware, which spends time lurking on his system and scrapes all of the sensitive information that it possibly can from things like his keyboard, because it was a keylogger, and also from his web browser, because things like cookies are stored in the web browser. Also, any of your passwords, if you use the inbuilt functionality of your browser to store passwords. Just a reminder, you shouldn't do that because browsers do have flaws in them, and it allows info stealers like this to take them off. Now, this is just ridiculous. It's suspected that it was part of that the attacker was part of an anti-AI activist group that had done this, but Van Andel had told the Wall Street Journal, who I'm not referencing here because of the damn paywall, not referencing their article directly. At least I am mentioning them. But he reported this breach to Disney's cyber team as soon as he knew of it, which was 5 months after those people had actually been lurking in here. And what they'd done, they changed all of his. Oh, sorry. He spent several days changing all of his passwords in order to, by way of retaliation. the hackers packaged up more than a terabyte of material from Disney's internal Slack channels and published that entire cache, which is about 44 million messages. The concerning thing here, and this is bad Disney, is the dump included private customer information, employee passport numbers, and theme park and streaming revenue numbers. Okay, fine. Theme park and streaming revenue numbers, don't really care about that. That kind of thing is going to get discussed openly across Slack, of course. But private customer information and employee passport numbers in a Slack channel, I'm not sure I'm on board with that. The passport number, the private customer information should be in customer relationship management channels, and the employee passport numbers should be in your HR system. They shouldn't be on your internal chats. That's dumb.
There's one of the aspects of this that I want to foot stomp is, and again, shout out to Ions, pointed out very succinctly there. This is not an AI story.
No.
This is a cyber hygiene story that has an
this
AI
is someone being
wrapper.
dumb story.
Yeah. And the only place that I want to really dive into with the AI aspect of it is, folks, AI is not cheap to train or produce, not yet anyway. It's getting cheaper. That's part of the whole, coming wave of the technology there. But right now it costs a lot. So there's no such thing as a true and actual free model. If it's touting itself as free, it's either training on the data that you're putting in there. So anytime that you do some sort of image generation, you're helping it learn. There's that aspect of it, which is not nearly as nefarious as the alternative, which it's malware. And it's making its money doing naughty things on your systems. So please, for the love of everything that's holy, understand that you're not getting any free. It's nothing free about, especially just in general, right? Let's not even dive into Gmail and all that fun stuff, because that's old hat at this point. But AI for sure is not cheap to train, produce, tinker with, iterate upon, etc. Whatever phrase you want to use. So this cannot be. That's more right. Like, I want the homie to get taken out behind the woodshed and beat with cricket bats here. But on the flip side, right? So because hey, we're trying to be in.
Bats for that.
Listen, I mean, just because it's it's just the wideness, I guess. But the
it's
thing,
a good paddling tool.
It is. That's a paddling. But the thing, that's exactly. But the thing truly that trying to be enlightened here and go, it's not the person, it's the system. The system failed them. Good grief, Disney. The amount of cyber hygiene boo-boos on what I consider, obviously, one of the premier companies out there, y'all, there's so many holes in this sieve to point out. You pointed out the lack of segmentation of the data. Why the hell is somebody randomly being allowed to download stuff that's not vetted? That's one of the biggest ones that jumped out to me. I would expect this at momandpop.com. But not.
How's they not flagged a terabyte of chat logs coming out?
That's also DLP. Good call. Good. Yeah. That's an aspect I didn't even jump into. The DLP aspects of this, because if that amount of data, just the sheer amount, you're absolutely correct. That moves across your bandwidth or across your environment. Someone should have an eye on it. It might be legit. You could be doing a lift and shift of something, but someone should be, wait a second, it's a TB of stuff? What is this? Okay, cool. Not exactly.
And it's going to an endpoint, not even from like server to server or something like that. That's
straight
wild.
up.
I mean,
good call.
Absolutely. Like, okay, fine. Like, 50, I mean, especially given it's a streaming
service as well.
You could say 50, 100 gigs maybe. Like, oh, okay, it's a large media file. It's going some places. There's obviously a threshold of where is it worth
the cupboards. They're doing something, sure.
But there's a threshold of where is it worth putting in the alerts, because if you put in the alerts on too low of a threshold of data moving around, then you're in a position of like
crazy.
You're just gonna have alarm bells literally every single day or every minute of every day. Whereas something like a terabyte, that seems, again, to an endpoint, that seems That seems suspiciously high. Like most endpoints don't have a terabyte of
And
storage,
even I'll be
right? And,
devil's
and even
advocate
if you
here.
do, it's going to take up your
Exactly.
entire drive.
100%. And even let's play the thought experiment a hair longer. It's like you said, it's a streaming service. There's a ton of folks that are dealing with content creation or tinkering with large file sizes, right? If they're doing animation or if they're doing any sort of all the cool creative stuff that you think of, right, when you hear Disney in your mind. But what the holy hell are you doing allowing folks to download randomfreeshit.com onto your enterprise sort
No,
of?
see, so here's where the plot thickens, because he didn't actually download that onto his
It was his
onto
personal.
his
It was his personal, was it?
it was his personal, and the reason why everything got sprung was
Because
because
it went into the
they
that sort of thing there. Yeah.
they had the
So
keylogger on his personal, so they were getting all of his passwords, all of that sort of stuff. And I think there was something here where he'd logged into Slack from his personal device, but the keylogger picked up all of his passwords, and they didn't actually. And this is where it's not 1Password's fault.
mhm.
They didn't need to get into his password manager necessarily, because they saw everything that he was doing, because there was spyware on
But
there
it's
essentially.
so
They
it's
saw
still
everything he was doing there
segmenting.
anyway.
But it's still segmenting workloads then. Like then at that point, I'm still looking. I would personally be still looking at the engineer going, why are you doing work
Yeah,
stuff on your home stuff? Cut it out. No?
absolutely. Well,
Okay.
at least if you've got access to the chats that have got that kind of sensitive information and whatnot, I think there's a case for being able to access work things from personal devices, but it should be very limited scope in terms of the
And
resources that
that
you can access, and they should be cloud based,
and
which
that
Slack
data
probably is.
should have to step up again at that point,
Well,
right?
if you want
Because
to download anything,
yeah,
yeah.
we have, because I've seen it in enterprise environments where you can access, like, say, a Confluence, certain areas in a Confluence, but if you're trying to do certain things or go to certain areas,
It bumps it up again.
then it's an admin step up even from your regular work credentials on
Yeah,
top of that, right? Or it's
yeah,
at the very least a reauth, right? Which in this case wouldn't have quite helped because you had the keylogger
yeah.
taking down
So
anything there. But good
in
grief.
any case, the dude's gone and lost his job, because actually the forensic examination that they poked into showed that he'd been accessing the poor news on his work laptop in violation of company policy, and in
Who still
any
thinks that's,
company policy.
come
That should be,
on?
unless you work in the adult entertainment industry,
Absolutely.
accessing the poor news on your work device, because obviously
It's no
in
good.
that context you need to, otherwise you
It's
can't do your
work.
work.
It's for
It
work.
is work. I still find it wild that is work for some
It's
people.
crazy.
But
No?
you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because that's one of those. That's another really good way of getting malware on your devices.
Always.
But the password manager was not at fault. It was the fact that Van Andel was an idiot who downloaded a free tool that turned out to be malware.
Malicious.
And I say idiot because, I mean, we don't do the victim blaming thing necessarily here, but this guy's a software engineer. He should know better.
Yeah.
Downloaded an AI tool that turned out to be malware, and then also, here's the real kicker: did not have multi-factor authentication on his 1Password. Had
That's
MFA
bananas.
on loads of other accounts, but not on the Golden Goose. Like,
Can't do it.
duh.
Yeah.
So yes, his password manager was not to blame for this. Yeah, it's just kind of wild. The bad guys had unrestricted access to his computer for 5 months. The keyboard logger was capable of stealing every set of credentials he used at the time, even if the usernames and passwords were typed in manually. Using the remote access, they could have simply exported an unencrypted copy of the 1Password database after it was unlocked. And it's just absolutely mad. They were also stealing session cookies as well, which is,
Oh,
for
why
those
not?
for those not, and I mean, Linus Tech Tips was got done by this, and he was like, oh, we should have known better around this one. But that's basically where you steal the file that sits on your browser that allows you to open new tabs and new windows without having to log in again. And
Mhm.
with stealing one of those, you don't need username, password, or anything like that. You literally just you steal the file. It's got a URL in it with the token, with the session, and you just open that URL and you're straight into somebody's session, and that can be stolen through phishing. The attackers never touched 1Password servers. There's no evidence that they were able to crack the encryption that protected that database, and the same thing would have happened with any other password manager program. So if this is not clear already, the big goof here was the multiple goofs. Big goof. Number one, free software that turns out to be malware. If it's free, either you're the product or you're the target. Number two, he did not have MFA on his golden goose.
Madness.
That's extremely dumb. Number three, and this is where we can ascribe some blame to Disney. What the hell was their logging and monitoring and DLP doing?
Yeah, that's
data loss prevention. It's just Anyway.
Somebody should be looking at that, just at least to verify. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's done now. There's no, I mean, the horse is bolted, but learn lessons from it.
Of course,
right? And I hope they are learning these lessons. And if they're not, Bob Iger should be going absolutely apoplectic. But that's where we'll leave that one, because I'm not sure we could take really much else from it.
No, I think we're good.
We'll go ahead and I think dive straight into our interview with Dr. Cole. So we'll leave it there and we'll see you on the other side. Right, we are joined today by Dr. Eric Cole. He's a renowned cybersecurity expert, entrepreneur, and best-selling author with over 30 years of experience in the industry. He has a unique background that spans working as a professional hacker for the CIA and advising some of the world's top companies. Dr. Cole, Eric, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. I think you're probably by far our most illustrious guest so far, so this is exciting for us. How are we doing? How's things?
Things are going great, man. Just, you know, millions of ideas, tons of creativity, and trying to just prioritize focus and not start too many projects at once.
I know the feeling. Yes, sometimes life comes at us quite overwhelmingly. Anyway, let's dive straight into stuff. It's an interesting time in a cybersecurity perspective, in a broader sense, but also quite immediately in the last couple of months with a change of administration. Omar and I were talking about this last week, about changes that are potentially going on at CISA at the moment. What's your take on how things are going over there? Because Doge seems to be kind of getting their claws into it a little bit, but it's kind of hard to figure out really what's going to change there and how it's going to change the state of cybersecurity within the US.
Yeah, to me, I always sort of look at with cybersecurity sort of like a radar screen, and you sort of have blips on your radar, and some of them get really, really big and some get small. And to me, there's sort of two very big blips on the radar screen, and it looks like they're going to potentially collide very quickly. And those two things, one is Doge and government efficiency. And it's one of those weird things because I'm in a hard spot where I absolutely believe in government efficiency. I'm a big Elon fan. I think what he's doing and how he thinks and how he moves and acts and behaves is so cool because he's sort of a fellow geek. So he thinks and acts more like a geek than an entrepreneur. So I really love that. But it's conflicted because my concern is it seems like government efficiency is how do we get access to information as quick, as fast as possible with disregarding any security, any controls, and any protection. It's one of those, there's a reason why Treasury data is located in a hidden bunker in a location that most people don't know where it is. And it's heavily guarded. It's underground. It's protected. It's not connected to the internet. It's secure and locked down. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why if you apply for a job at Treasury Department, it takes 9 to 12 months to actually pass the clearance, get access, get read on, and get involved. There's a reason for all that. It's not because the government is inefficient. It's because of security. And now I'm concerned because it's all about getting access as quick and as fast as possible and putting in private servers. And I sort of laugh because it's so funny how what's done by one side is okay, but when it's done by the other side, it's not okay. And I don't know if you remember back over, I guess it was, 8 or 12 years ago when Donald Trump was running against, or President Trump was running against Hillary Clinton. And there was a whole issue of private servers at State Department. And she was putting up private servers, and it's like, who has the data? Who has the information? And that was like criticized and bad and terrible. And now we're hearing that Doge is installing their own private servers and capturing data and information. And then sort of the irony of it is you then had in the last week, Doge website hacked and compromised with multiple vulnerabilities and missing patches. So you're sitting there going, okay, clearly cybersecurity is not a top priority, and access to data and information is. So that's sort of one blip that's I'm really concerned with. And then the other one, and I predicted this, I didn't think it would happen this quick. I actually thought it would not come to surface till May or June, but I knew this was working. It is, why would somebody like Elon want access to all that data? Now, yes, government efficiency, but let's be honest. I can look at a spreadsheet. I can go in and find that you're sending $10 million or $10 billion to a foreign country that we should invest internally. I don't need access to your data to cut that fund. I don't need access to your data to make that determination. So I'm like, why does he want access to all this data? Well, what needs data? Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not about the GPUs. It's not about the servers. It's about the models, data that you train it on. And you look at Elon didn't buy Twitter because he wanted to influence. He wanted the data. And he has public data. He has Twitter data. And now you go in and say, okay, he's now wanting all this government data. And you're thinking, okay, what is he doing on the AI front? And then I think in the last week or two, he comes out with Grog 3, and it's like, boom, like, okay, now these blips like are colliding, and this is getting really, really scary, where you have a brilliant person who has access to all this government data, who's building an AI model. Now, to be fair, there's two scenarios. One is it could be really good for America, for us to have American citizens to have an AI model that's actually trained and knowledgeable on our government, our systems, how we work and how we operate. So there could be a positive to this if it was controlled and limited to US only. But the scary part is foreign countries, foreign adversaries, other areas can also get access to this. So now is data privacy a train that's leaving the station and never coming back? So I'm sort of tracking the AI front. I mean, DeepSeek was another big story that was going on, and then government efficiency, where it's basically contrasting with security. So yeah, to me, data privacy is really getting the forefront. And the biggest thing that I'm really tracking and pushing right now is that everyone seems to forget the United States is one of the only top-tier countries that doesn't have federal laws on cybersecurity and data privacy. Australia does. China does. Russia does. Europe is even better because not only does each country, but they have GDPR, right? The European, I mean, GDPR to me is one of the most brilliant pieces of legislation. So kudos to the Europeans and what they've done there. But I'm like, why isn't the US adapting GDPR? Why aren't we passing federal laws? And it's one of those that right now, what's leading the pack is California. If you're familiar, if there's no federal laws, then state laws basically dominate. And California basically is defining those policies and regulations. Well, here's the reality. California is one state. We're letting one state basically dictate federal law, and we sort of need to sort of wake up and get our act together. And then the other sort of final piece on this is the traditional laws, the laws that govern in the United States, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I don't think George Washington had a cell phone. I really don't think Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, I don't think Thomas Jefferson pulled out his iPad and was searching Google, right, when they were writing this. So I'm like, there's no possible way these brilliant individuals ever anticipated a digital world, digital rights, and digital information. And the reality is, our current laws, our current Constitution, it just doesn't scale and map to a digital world and the internet. And as you know, the United States, we created the internet, and we're sort of the internet. We're once again the only country that doesn't have cyber boundaries. China bans a lot of our applications. People are shocked, but Google and a lot of our apps, they're not available in China. North Korea, they don't even have the internet. I don't even think the citizens know what the internet is. The Russians, twice a year, disconnect from the public internet for 24 hours to show that they can run independently. So every other country has cyber borders and controls of what comes in and what comes out. And the US doesn't. We're just opened and we're exposed. So to me, like, we're in a really interesting spot where the next sort of 3 to 4 years is really going to be telling us sort of what happens and what occurs from a data privacy standpoint.
Lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so because you mentioned California's law. I mean, Omar, this is really your realm. You're the privacy guy out of the two.
I mean, I thought it was till we got Dr. Cole on, and then I'm gonna sit down and take notes now, because but he said it brilliantly, where, you know, you've seen a lot of other states go, listen, there's no leadership, there's no guidance. I guess CCPA, right, with the economic muscle that it has, you know, behind it. If it works for them, let's take a look, right? And so, like, you have weird front runners, right? Massachusetts dipped its foot in there. New York followed suit, right? Regionally, and you get places like Virginia, Florida, but it's such a patchwork that it's almost like it's ineffective as a result.
Yeah. And this is really the problem. And I recall actually this there's something you posted, Eric, on Instagram about kind of complexity. And it was funny. I read it and I thought, damn, I was thinking the same thing about like 4 or 5 years ago in regards to, you know, the more complexity that you have in the system, the more holes that there are to be able to poke at it and get in. So where we've got, 50 states, conceivably, if there's no coordination, every single one of them has a different flavor of different things. The complexity gives rise to confusion, which gives rise to lack of cohesion, opportunities for people to manipulate how things work. And then, you're only as, strictly speaking, you're only as secure as your least secure state. And then you're in a whole world of problem where everybody's been compromised because somebody wasn't, keeping up with their hygiene from a privacy perspective. That's the trouble with it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's also, we're not only we have complexity, but we basically have terms that are inaccurate and not correct. And like we talk about privacy, PII. PII is supposed to stand for personal identifiable information, private data. Well, here's the reality. If you look at the OPM and all these other breaches that have happened over the last 5 or 6 years, once again, depending on the numbers, between 40 to 60% of American social security number, which is our unique identifier, is public. It's a public identifiable information. So now the question is, our whole system, if you want to open up a bank account in my name, if you want to open up a credit card, if you want to access my data, if you know my social security number, my zip code, you pretty much have full reign, and that information is now public. And the problem is there's no easy way to change your social security number. You can change your driver's license, you can change your phone number, but your social security number, it was never built or designed to be compromised. And now we're living in this world where it's public information. And I probably going to hopefully live another 40, 50 years. But what about our kids whose information is compromised? They now have to live in a world where there's no privacy and there's no protection. So yeah, it's one of those where I always try to be optimistic and be like, okay, we got to look for the positive, but we have to recognize that we have a problem and people are just unaware of it. And I'm just shocked of how little coverage cybersecurity really gets in the media and really gets in public attention.
It's funny that you mentioned the lack of privacy around the social security numbers, because so many of them are out there. I mean, even I learned not long ago, even for military veterans, for some reason to do with VA benefits and stuff like that, like on your prescriptions, on your scripts for your medications, your social security number is on there in plain text, so anybody can, anybody who can get near that can see that, and they can just copy that down. But it's funny because that you come full circle, because I think that exposure of all of that social security data actually gives rise to a certain amount of apathy among people with regards to Musk and Doge's access to the Treasury, because it's like, oh well, everybody's got it already, what does it matter if he's got it? But your point about being, but all of that data all in one place is very different to pulling bits of it together here and there and not really knowing whether you've got a complete view of the world.
Yeah, like you said, it's the correlation and combination of the data. Like you get one piece of information and it's a risk. You get 2, 3, or 4 pieces and it becomes a high risk. You get 5, 6, or 7, it becomes critical. And that's the problem, is the government was always built on sort of separation of duties. There was a reason why when I worked at the CIA, we did not have access to NSA data. It was crazy. We're both in the business, but if I wanted to access NSA data, I had to actually drive about an hour and a half to their location. I had to get read in. I had to get signed. I had to go through checks and validation just for government to share information. And the same thing with FBI and Secret Service. It's all isolated for a reason. And now you're having one group or one entity that's not even technically government employees going in and wanting to have all the data and put it together into a single spot. I mean, that's really, really concerning to have all of it in a single location, because if it's available to Doge, it's available to any foreign adversary or anyone else that potentially wants to cause harm.
Yeah. I think it's funny, the separation of all the data, it's probably the most mundane, yet I think most sort of accurate of inaccuracies in Hollywood, for example. Where it's like, oh, we'll pull this from the NSA database and the CIA whilst they're flying in a helicopter, just getting all the data. It's like, yeah, it doesn't happen. There's no way. Anyway, so to move on from that, I wanted to ask. So one of your recent Instagram posts, you referenced smart people knowing the right answers, but brilliant people knowing the right questions. Yeah. Right, brilliant people ask the right questions. Yeah. What's the best question that you've actually ever heard asked? Be it, I don't know, it could just be in a professional context or in it specifically in cyber.
How can I help you? Because here's the reality. I'm guilty of this. Cybersecurity folks, we know our stuff. Like we know our systems. We know the problems. We know the issues. We know how to solve them. So it's very easy for us to go in and try to tell people, you need to do this, this, or this. Right? It's easy for me to go to a keynote event, go to a PTA meeting. I believe giving back to the community is really important. Going to a board, sitting with the executives and basically telling them you're vulnerable, you're a target, you're not doing what you're supposed to, you need to use two-factor authentication. It's very easy for us to point out flaws and efficiencies and to go in and tell them you need to do this, you need to do this, and you need to do that. But the reality is, we don't realize it, but people's lives are complex. People's lives are difficult. They don't have a lot of time and they don't understand cybersecurity. So us coming in and basically saying your social security number is compromised, your identity is going to be stolen, there's a 1 in 10 chance in the next 6 months that your bank account's going to be wiped out. And oh, by the way, you need to use two-factor authentication, never click on a link, delete all your apps. And they're sort of like, I just feel like a tsunami wave came on top of me. Yeah. So instead, what I find, it's so amazing the response you get. But I walk in to a board of directors meeting, so I walk into a CEO's office, or I go to a parent's house, or I go to a PTA meeting, and I basically say, listen, we're concerned about cybersecurity. You know that cybersecurity is a problem, that this is not a shocker, that there's no one on the planet that's going to be surprised on that. And instead of me preaching to you or pointing out flaws or scaring you, because you're probably scared already and you're probably confused already, I have a question for you. How can I help you? What can I do to make your life more secure? What can I do to make your life easier and better? What can I do to help you better understand and implement cybersecurity? And it's funny, when you do that, the whole energy in the room shifts. Because now you're not viewed as the adversary. You're not viewed as the person that's trying to roadblock. Because the reality is, most people view cybersecurity as, you're going to tell me what I can't do. You're going to tell me that I can't do this. You're going to make my life more difficult. You're going to make it more complex. You're going to add a lot more steps to it. And we're viewed as an obstacle. But when we go in and we're like, how can we help you? How can we make your life easier? Now we're viewed as a business enabler. And that's always my theme, is there's a phrase that we hear a lot in IT and development and tech, which I think is terrible, and people buy into it. You've probably heard the phrase, speed, functionality, or security, pick one. And I'm like, that's stupid. Yeah. I want all three, right? It's sort of like going in and going, okay, you can either have an appetizer, you can have a main course, or you can have a dessert. Pick one. I'm like, heck no. If I'm going to dinner, I'm having all three. And guess what? I'm getting an extra scoop of ice cream because I love my desserts and I love my sweets. So it's like this crazy idea that we've instilled in our minds that you can't have efficiency, you can't have functionality, and you can't have security all peacefully coexist is insane. Of course they can. But we need to start looking at ourselves as enablers. We need to look at ourselves as helpers. How can we help and how can we assist, as opposed to trying to go in, block, be obstacles, and limit and reduce what people can do?
Yeah. The irony is, I guess, in both scenarios, it's like, the security, the speed, or the functionality, the full three courses. In most cases, your limiting constraint actually is cost, isn't it? Typically, especially in a world where we're looking at, okay, price of eggs skyrocketing and everything costs too much and inflation and all that. Like that's it. People are mostly worried about cost.
And to me, like, a great example of that is most security advice that people have is, oh, you need to install more programs. I hear all the time, oh, you need to have endpoint security on your mobile phones. You need to have all this. And once again, it's increasing cost, increasing complexity. You know what the best advice is to securing a smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android device? Delete apps you haven't used in 30 days. Most of the compromises we have seen of smartphones, most of the compromises we've seen of bank accounts are because people have apps that are tracking location, tracking cameras, and they haven't used it in over 30 days. The challenge that I give everyone, and it's how I live my life, what if you lived your life with 10 apps? You're only allowed 10 apps, nothing more. But Eric, what if I want to install a new app? Delete one of the existing ones. Because if you're going in and you're going to put a new app in, it should replace or complement an existing one. And now what if we only had 10 apps? And then I'm going to up the ante. What is the reason why apps are so dangerous? Because free is not free. Free is basically giving access. I love doing this at an event. I ask for a volunteer and I tell them what they're going to do and they're okay with it. And I go into their phone. We go under settings and we go under location tracking. And I asked with permission, can I put it up on the screen? And I put up a list of every app on their phone that's tracking their location. And there's never, ever, ever been a single occurrence where people aren't shocked. Why is a flashlight app tracking my location? Well, why is a game that I didn't even know was developed in a foreign country tracking my location? And people are shocked because that's what free is. Free is basically saying, I will let you track my data, track my location, and in turn, you'll give me the app. And the problem is we're not even using the apps, yet they're monitoring, tracking, and doing our data. So the other up the ante is I have 10 apps on my phone. Most of them I pay for. Because if you're paying $7.99 a month, they don't need your location. Because here's the reality. They're going to get their money either by your data or your payment. So I'd rather pay $7.99 and not track my location than have you track my location, my cameras, and my phone. So I challenge folks, what if you tried running your life for 10 apps and make 80% of them paid apps?
I'm not sure I could do that, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't even have your buy-in. I know. But at least you're honest. At least you're honest.
I'm so on board with it. But
Yes.
I'd have to let you have me like let me have like 20.
Okay. How about 15? We'll negotiate 15.
Okay, so I can try.
You can try for 15. Okay, good.
Have to relearn math again, right? Like I can't depend on the calculator app. And to your point, right? Kind of drawing it back to the lack of federal regulation, the data sales are not technically illegal, right? The market for that, it's not technically illegal yet. So you're absolutely right, Eric. Like it's either going to be, I'll give you my $7.99, or you can technically do what you want with this data, just because, while we might frown at it, we haven't made it against the law to do that in a lot of instances. Yeah.
I mean, we had all that hurrah earlier in the year with TikTok and it being banned. And sure. I mean, it shouldn't be banned. It should be banned, all these other things. And I'm like, we're missing the point. The point is what Omar said is, you know how many other apps like TikTok that are developed by foreign countries that track our location, access our camera, access our microphone, and it's perfectly legal. It's perfectly okay. That's the problem. To me, Congress and the White House shouldn't be banning TikTok. They should be passing a law that it's not allowed for you to go in and monitor location. Free apps are not allowed to monitor location of U.S. citizens. Wouldn't it be that hard? And people are like, oh, but that's a huge change. I'm shocked. I actually love it, but I live on DoorDash. I mean, that's just my life. That's how I get my meals. And one of the things that drives me crazy with DoorDash is the built-in tipping, because I'll go in and you tip, but you don't know the service. You don't know who you're getting. I mean, I've had it delayed by hours and you can't remove the tip.
It's a roll of the dice.
Yeah. But what I love is New York, you're not allowed to add a tip in. Yeah. If you use DoorDash in New York, it is not allowed to add a tip. There's no tip added, and you have to do it at the end, not at the beginning. And I'm like, that's brilliant. I love New York, right? I'm born and raised in New York. That's brilliant. But here's the reality. It wasn't that hard for DoorDash to do that. If you're in New York, you don't add a tip. If you're in any other state, you do. So if DoorDash can do it and DoorDash can remove a tip, why can't we move location tracking from our free apps? Why can't we just pass a law, simple law? We don't need to make it complex. It doesn't need to be trillions of dollars. What if Congress and the White House in the next 30 days passed a simple law? Any free app that's available in the United States, you are not allowed to track location by default. The user has to turn it on.
Enable it. Yes.
You have to enable it, but it is disabled by default. That one simple law, I mean, changes everything. Protects our privacy, protects our children, protects our location. You know how many children are abducted because of location tracking? You know how many people are scammed because of location tracking? You know how many people are robbed? People don't realize robbers actually go in and track your location. They see, you live in Virginia. I know your address because your geolocator gave it to me, and you're currently in the Bahamas. I'm going to go rob your house.
Yeah.
I don't think it's around anymore, but there was a site, I think it was like 15 years ago, that was actually called pleaserobme.com.
Yes.
And you actually put in a zip code. This was a real app. It's been taken down because of public scrutiny. I think
Robin.
maybe but you put in a zip code and it told you every house where the person hasn't been home for 48 hours.
It was wild.
I mean, and that was not illegal, but it was taken down because of public scrutiny. But that was not illegal. And that existed for almost a year. I mean, this is the insanity of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, that's it.
What? So Omar, you remember pleaserobme.com, right?
100%. But I mean, but the internet has given us things like faces of death, right? Like that's even a deeper cut. Like that was, for me, I was like, oh man, the things that. So yeah, like you said, it's wild and open in the U.S. You can get access to wild things, and it's funny you bring that up because there's a course on OSINT, right? That like Heath Adams or Cyber Mentor does, right? And the capstone for that is exactly what you're bringing up, where they actually robbed and unfortunately killed like an up and coming rapper, Pop Smoke. They tracked him via app location. His social posts, right? He was like, hey, I'm here. And you could so they pieced together that with the geolocation data and robbed him. And unfortunately, he was like, no, you're not taking this big bundle of cash and killed him. Right. So like there's very real like physical consequences, to this logical cyber stuff that you're pointing out. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing that is sort of frustrating to me is what you just said is correct, where he was targeted because of geolocation and social. Yet I don't think many people know that.
Yeah,
I don't think many people, because the story was all about, this rapper that got killed, and it was all about flashy, because of gangs or whatever the reasoning was, that it was rivals and things like that.
Yeah.
But the whole point of the story that should have been coverage was this was because he was tracked on social.
Yeah.
And the same thing, you have that the horrific shooting of the pharmaceutical exec in New York City in the morning. And once again, they were able to track the exact location of the individual, that person. They knew where he was going to be. I mean, and once again, that part was missed in the story. And I'm like, this is what people need to realize is you are carrying around tracking devices and you don't even realize it. Like I talk to parents about chips, like, because they talk about chipping you, like putting a chip in you or putting a chip in your kid. It cracks me up. We've been chipping dogs for 10 years. Yeah. Like if your dog gets lost, you can track it. They can figure out where it is. I mean, almost most pets today, I don't know the percent, but a large percent of chips. And it's like, we're protecting our dogs better than we are our kids and family. But here's the reality. You carry a cell phone. That cell phone never leaves your side. It's with you 24/7. When you're sleeping, it's on your nightstand. And so therefore we are being tracked. We are being located. And I love when I give this advice to parents, like, Eric, how can we protect our kids online? You know what the best advice is? Their cell phone is not allowed in their bedroom. You have a central station and it stays downstairs. When you go to sleep, that cell phone is not in their bed. They don't have access to it. They can't check it. They can't wake up in the middle of the night. And it's like when I say that to parents, it's like I am committing the crime of the century. Eric, are you want me to take my kid's cell? You actually want my child to go to bed without watching a video for 2.5 hours? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's how I grew up. That's how you grew up. But it's just our mentality is so screwed up that common sense goes out the door. Like things we would never do in the real world. In cyberspace, it's just insane, the illogical logic that we apply.
I gotta be honest, I really don't understand this kind of like mentality of like parent by iPad, iPhone, whatever. Because like, I mean, I'm not a dad yet, but I couldn't even imagine doing that because I know what kind of childhood I had. It was fine. But I mean, I guess I've seen the effects that it has on some other people. But I mean, the other thing, you talked about like everybody having a chip and stuff like that. I mean, there's two things. There's one that, I don't think people understand, as far as tracking, like even just posting photos online when they're on holiday, like how much that can expose them. And it's like, look, you don't have to post them when you're there. Like just pick them and then post them after. Like when was the last time that you saw somebody's holiday photos and you gave a shit as to whether they were actually there when they were posting them or whether they posted them after? Like, you don't care when they're there. You're just jealous about them gloating that they're on holiday in some nice place. But then the chip one as well is that, it's the standard Bill Gates injecting us with a chip conspiracy. Like, yeah, nobody needs to. You've got phones.
Yeah, we've already done it. That ship has sailed. Yeah,
yeah.
Yep.
The thing I wanted to if I could, you mentioned something really that struck me, and I wanted to make sure we circle back on it. That lack of coverage, right, for cybersecurity that you mentioned, like it's not getting the shine. I even got mad again. I saw the other day, like, hey, buy the dip or buy the breach.
Yeah.
Right. It's something that you could potentially do because, like, it just doesn't matter. That's terrible. And then, their next quarter profits are still stellar. Why do you think that is? Because I saw maybe something where the cyber professional is not asking, how can we help you? Like, is there something there, or like, is there another tactic you would take to kind of change that?
Yes. So I think the problem is twofold. One is, I think a lot of people think that cybersecurity is being addressed. Like it's not their problem. Like my bank has to deal with cybersecurity. My e-commerce vendor has to deal with cybersecurity. The hospital, my doctor's office, cybersecurity is their problem. It's not mine. But what we don't realize is that most of these attacks are because an individual got phished. An individual clicked on a link. An individual opened an attachment. So they don't realize most attacks are not targeting your bank or the hospital. They're targeting you. Well, if I'm an attacker, why would I try to break into a bank that has amazing security that's going to take me 9 months to go in? Instead, I can create a fake email that looks legitimate. I can send an email or a text to every one of your customers. 50% of you click on the link, and I now steal and rob 50% of the bank customers quicker, easier, and faster. So I think it's an awareness issue where people are just not aware of the responsibility that they're a target. And a lot of people are like, oh, Eric, I'm not Bill Gates. I don't have a lot of money. No one's going to target me. And the reality is today's attackers are not trying to steal $50 billion from one person. They're trying to steal $1 from 50 million people. And that's the attack vector. And we find this all the time, the skimming attacks. Most people, when we go in and look at their records with their permission, they have been losing money either on their credit cards or their bank account. But the reality is they're not stealing $5,000 or $10,000. They're stealing $2 or $3. If somebody went in and charged your credit card $10,000, you would notice.
Yeah.
You would catch it. It would be flagged by the fraud system. But if you went, and once again, I'm not saying anything negative, but if you went to a restaurant and you went to pay your bill, and on that credit card statement, you're handwriting a $5 tip, if that wait staff put in $10, most people would have no clue. Because they know they went to the restaurant. They know it was around $100. If it was 100 or 110, 30 days later, they're not going to notice. Yet that is happening with such a high frequency where you're losing $5 or $10 every month, and people just are completely unaware and not tracking or not realizing it, which is where I think we need to do a better job of education and making folks aware. People aren't going in and stealing the bucket. They're just poking little holes in the bucket, and it's leaking out very slowly. If there's a slow leak, it's very hard to detect. And that's what people don't realize. Today's attacks, they're not emptying the bucket. They're slowly leaking. And by the time you notice, it's too little too late.
Do you remember that film from the late 90s with Sean Connery, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Entrapment?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And the premise is, on New Year's, Y2K bug testing, go and steal a few cents from every bank account in the world. And it amounts to like $7 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, that was was really ahead of its time now, actually, when you think about it in terms of the concept.
Yeah. And that's what I'm finding is movies aren't fictional. They're predictors of the future. Like the other movie, which I wish so many people watch because it's actually a good action flick, is The Beekeeper with Jason Statham. a lot of people haven't heard of it, but the whole premise, I think there's a good story there, Robert. But the whole premise is that this was basically a scam where an elderly person was targeted and they stole millions of dollars and she couldn't handle it and basically killed herself. That is happening all the time, but people just don't realize it. Have you seen the movie Robert and the Beekeeper?
I have, and I can. The reason why I'm laughing is because I completely agree with you on the part of like the scam that the whole thing's based on. Completely real. Like, absolutely, this stuff does happen. People's lives are ruined about it. People do take their own lives because they are absolutely ruined. But much as I have no problem with watching Jason Statham, some of his acting and accent in that, I'm sorry, on a previous episode of this, I had to absolutely eviscerate that film just for Jason Statham.
It's UK on UK violence. That's how I dealt with it on the last call, because he went on like almost a 30-minute bender, and I was like, "What did Jason do to you?" Like is there old beef?
You don't like Jason, my man?
Yeah, like
no, I like Jason Statham. I just can't get on board with his performance in that film.
Like, and you're a Man City fan. Like, what is?
No, I agree with some bad, and also, I mean, there was some really bad scenes like that. That one where I think it was in Boston, where there's 15 FBI agents attack him, and he basically kills them all, like, or destroys them, or whatever you call that thing that he did. I'm like, really? Like, maybe make it 3, but like 15. So, and I do agree with you. There's a few spots where I'm looking at it going, okay, that was really bad.
See, so it's not okay. Okay, there we go. Right? No, because Robin was getting nervous. He's like, wait a second. Oh no!
It was as you said the film name. I was like, oh god, this is gonna come back.
Yeah, I wasn't letting you get away, and Eric picked up on it immediately. He's like, hold on, there's a thread there. Let me talk. It's great.
I wanted to pivot to some of your experience. You are, and it's again staying on the theme of personal cybersecurity as well, because you were CTO at McAfee, right?
Correct.
But so in the past sort of 5 to 10 years, there's been some pretty drastic improvements made in the like inbuilt security suites and devices. You know, the Windows Defender, the kind of sort of nondescript Apple firewall, I guess you could call it, that sort of stuff. Third-party AV did used to be a big thing, and everybody used to lament having to pay like $80 a year for renewing it whenever it came up, and it always seemed to come up very, very quickly. Given that you've worked in that space, but now the way that the world has gone, is third-party AV really necessary for people anymore? You know, what's your take on
that? So my response is, are airbags and anti-lock brakes really needed in a car? Not if you're a safe driver. If you're a safe driver and you know how to drive, and you are aware and follow the rules and the mirrors and the things like that, you don't need those additional features. You don't need those mechanisms, because as long as I have the fundamental pieces, you're good. And the reality is, you can build the safest car on the planet, but if you have a bad driver, people are going to still die. People are going to kill. So I'm with you on that front, which is, we need to make safer drivers, not safer cars, because computers today are pretty locked down. I mean, they're pretty secure. The ports are closed. And like you said, I lose track, because in cybersecurity, I love our field. But one thing that drives me crazy is we have to keep creating new acronyms and changing the meaning of stuff. Because I think now, I don't think it's antivirus, it's EDR. And it's like, let's just make things as freaking complex as possible to confuse humans so they have no freaking clue. Because antivirus, a human can understand. Yeah. Endpoint security, a human can understand. EDR, What the, like, they have no freaking clue what that is. So how are they going to install it? So I guess I'll sort of give a two-front answer is I believe we do need to make safer drivers on the internet. We do need to educate and make people more aware. If we could go in and just stop people from clicking links or opening attachments, I think it's better. And I'm a fan of root cause. So if we're not going to fix the root cause, then yes, EDR and endpoint security will make it a little safer. If you go in and click on a link, it'll stop somebody. But here's my real question. Why are we still allowing embedded links in email? Why are we still allowing embedded links in text messages? Why are we allowing, I mean, this is such an easy fix. Why are we allowing somebody to send a text that says it's, and I don't want to pick on anyone, but that they actually have good security, UPS or FedEx? Why are we allowing somebody to send me a message that says it's from FedEx, yet the URL is not FedEx.com? I mean, what an easy check. I mean, it would not be hard for us to go in and do a simple check that if the domain name doesn't match the company name, block it and don't allow it. But why are we doing that? Instead, we're creating all these complex systems and EDR and all that, which fine, it's good. I'm a fan of it if we're not going to do the other thing. But the reality is, why aren't we just making safer systems? Why aren't we blocking embedded links? Why aren't we fixing the root cause problem? Until we do that, then I think, yes, endpoint and EDR is good, but there's a better way to secure the endpoint and secure the user.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like looking for systemic solutions to systemic problems rather than yelling up and down about any specific point in that chain. Like to kind of stay with the theme of then and now. At least for me, and again, I have like a third of the experience, Eric. So like this is it's the weirdest time I've seen to break into cyber, at least in my 10, 11.
Yeah.
And your 3x volume of experience. What are the differences you see back then and now of breaking into this field?
To me, the biggest difference is it's really today. If you want to get into cybersecurity, there's really two main areas that we need humans. And one is on the business side. Chief Information Security Officers is not a technical position. You need to have an understanding of business. So to me, is going in and getting cybersecurity with a business minor or a business minor with cybersecurity, because we need business people who think and understand cyber. And I would also say that goes for, to me, if you want to basically be successful for life, you want to never worry about money, you want to make as much money as you want to print money, get a cybersecurity degree with a law degree.
Yeah.
There's nobody sitting in Congress right now that has cybersecurity background. They're brilliant lawyers, they're great businessmen, they're great politicians, but none of them have training in cybersecurity. What if we actually had senators and House of Representatives that actually had cybersecurity and law degrees? So to me, it's, if you want to break in, go on the softer strategic side with business and law. And then if you want to go technical, to me, the big area now is detection, analytics, and SOX. Right now, we're struggling. We have tech to prevent. I mean, you look at the behavioral analytics, the AI predictive. I mean, we have some amazing technology. Designing and building network architectures that have behavioral analytics with DLP, with encryption of databases, with key management. I mean, that's all solved really well. Patching. I mean, there's some work in that. But that's getting very, very commoditized. The problem we have now is we're generating all these alerts, all these data, and we don't have enough smart analytics for AI to be able to break into that field. The AI detection is the one area that's not good. Why? We don't have enough historical data on how to detect attacks. So if, to me, you want to break into cyber today, you become world-class at pattern matching, correlation, detection of attacks. If you can go in to a company, and this is where I still have my reputation and I make most of my money is, I can go into a company and I can look at large amounts of data sets, large amounts of packets, large amounts of alerts, and I can identify and find attacks very quick and very fast. So it's sort of the threat hunting, if we want to call it threat hunting area, detection, all of that, that's where the biggest need is. So if you want to break into security, to me, it's really on the detection, the understanding patterns to be able to predict and find compromised systems. Because here's the reality. Most companies are compromised for a long time before it's detected. Yeah, if we had people that can go in and catch it early, it's what I call, what is the biggest demand in the medical field right now? Preventive medicine.
Preventive medicine.
It's not getting people sick. We've seen how well that works with COVID, right? That doesn't scale very well. It's preventive medicine. How do we keep people healthy? And I think we're in the same thing with cybersecurity is we're too focused on sort of after you get sick, after you get compromised. But what if we actually did preventive cybersecurity? What if we did proactive cybersecurity where we can detect and find attackers beforehand? It's not prevention, but it's early detection. People are going to break in, but what if we caught attackers during the preliminary scans? What if we caught attackers after the user clicked on the link, but before they got to the database? So it's really that preventive, proactive security that we really need to invest time, energy, and effort in.
I'm interested with
this. I'm gonna hold on, Robin. I gotta jump in, and I want my wife to hear this on the podcast when she listens. Not Dr. Cole has said I need to get that law degree.
Yes.
So okay, it's problem. Argument solved. I'm sorry, sweetie. Okay.
It's a doctor order. I'll give you a prescription. I'll give you a prescription for
prescription for a law degree.
A prescription for a law degree.
Oh, you've made my dreams come true, sir. Thank you, Robin. Take it away.
You mentioned there about the analysis and detection sort of stuff that the AI can't do, and that I think that to some people that's gonna actually probably to a lot of people that's gonna seem a little bit counterintuitive because the AI is the big thing. It can do many calculations straight away. It can see things that we aren't necessarily because there's just too much data. When you're looking at it from that perspective, is it more a matter of being able to spot the things that the AI can't simply because what you can see is very much more a matter of sort of experience and almost like a learned gut instinct as to it just doesn't look right, and doing it that way.
Yeah. So it's really a timing. We don't have enough data sets on detecting attacks for a long enough time. AI is all about the training models. It's all about the historical data. Why can we predict weather so well? Because we have 60 years of accurate weather to predict. We don't have 60 years of detection data. We don't even have, in some cases, 3 to 4 years. And because we don't have enough trained individuals, most of the data sets we have are of successful attacks. So the problem with AI is we don't have enough historical data of proactive detection to train AI to catch the stuff. All we have right now are a ton of successful breaches. And the problem is most breaches we're not catching. So we're training AI, we're training on attacks we know about. Well, let me ask you a question. What criminals get caught? The bad ones. Yeah. The good criminals don't get caught. There are cyber criminals out there right now today that have not been caught for 5 years. Well, here's the reality. If we haven't caught them, AI can't learn about them. AI is only as good as the data sets that we have. So the reality is we're training AI to catch the bad criminals. We're training AI to catch the low-hanging fruit. We're training AI to catch the simple stuff. That's great. Because guess what? A lot of companies are missing it. But as we train AI to catch the easy stuff, to catch the known attackers, two things are going to happen. One, The bad cyber criminals are going to go away or get arrested. And the good cyber criminals are going to get better and more advanced and run ahead of AI. So now, in some cases, AI is actually creating smarter, more advanced criminals. They're actually making the attacker's job easier, because here's the reality. Attackers have endpoint security products. Well, one of the things at McAfee that we used to do all the time is we would actually find and deploy hackers because they knew how to bypass our systems, and then we would use their knowledge to improve and make it better. So all we're doing with these AI models is now we're giving attackers smarter, better data sets to do more advanced attacks. So in some cases, we're creating smarter, better, more advanced criminals with what we're doing on the AI front. Now, I believe in 20, 30 years, AI, like in weather, will revolutionize cybersecurity. I believe in 20, 30 years when we have tons of data set, it's completely different. But the reality is we don't have enough historical data for AI to truly be effective. And I know with that, I'm afraid to check my email after this airs, because I'm probably going to be getting some threats from some of my friends, because some of my really good friends are building out companies on AI. And you know something? They're doing a great job. But the reality is we have to accept that we just don't have the data sets. And they're really, in some cases, they're actually making the cyber criminals more advanced, which means we need better, smarter humans. We don't need better, smarter AI. In 30 years, we need better, smarter AI. Today, we need better, smarter humans to work on the prevention, proactive security, and threat hunting.
Yeah. It's food for thought. We've discussed a lot about the personal side of cybersecurity. So let's go finish with that as a bombshell piece. In your opinion, what is the single biggest thing that anyone can do to protect themselves online?
The biggest single thing is, and I'll do abstract and then I'll give tactical advice. Mm-hmm. Recognize you are a target and that cybersecurity is your responsibility. Now, the best single piece of advice, and this once again is going to frustrate and annoy a lot of people. It's going to shock a lot of people. But for anybody who's not super technical, for anybody that you're concerned, your parents, your kids, anyone that is going to be a target, is we need simpler, basic systems. And the reality is that I didn't even plan it this way, but all I travel with is an iPad. Because guess what? Most of the attacks don't run on an iPad. Most of the malicious links don't work on an iPad because it's simple, it's basic. Now, are there restrictions? Are there some programs that don't run on it? But the reality is, if we simplify our lives, if we use simpler devices, don't get me wrong, I love Apple, I love Microsoft, I think they're doing amazing products, but the reality is a Windows operating system and a Mac OS are so freaking complicated. It is just a field day for attackers to break in. So what if we gave all of our parents, what if we gave all of our kids, people that were concerned that aren't super sophisticated, what if we gave them simpler devices? What if we gave them simpler systems? What if they could only do certain activity? That to me would solve a lot of the problems. That would solve a lot of the issues. So we need to think, how do we simplify and use less tech in our life, not add more tech and make more things? And then really, I sort of wanted to save the final punchline. Here would be my best advice. My best advice is every week for 24 hours, do a digital detox. What if you stayed off your phone for 24 hours? What if you stayed off tech? Now you pick it. If you want to do it on Saturday, if you want to do it on Sunday, I sort of know a lot of people, in the US and others are fairly religious. There's a lot of different religions, but most people have a day of celebration, whether it's Saturday for some religions, it's Friday for others, it's Sunday for others. What if your day of observation where you went to church and you observed, and that was your day of rest? What if you rested from tech? What if on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you actually didn't use any tech? You actually talked to people. You went for walks. You went outside. You did things. It's once again, people are like, are you kidding me? You're taking away my phone. No, you're taking it away. But what if you went 24 hours on your day of rest with no tech and you did a digital detox for you and your family? I would guarantee if we implemented that in America, people's lives would be drastically different in 3 to 6 months.
You're giving my wife so much ammo with this.
No, listen, and this is from a tech like luminary saying, hey, 1 day a week, no tech. I mean, if you're saying it, Dr. Cole, like that should resonate with people. It is with me, because I'm seeing it now with when you said the piece about taking the cell phone away, right? I have she's just newly 1 year old, and like she'll steal our phone, and like no, she'll grab it and like run away and be very excited, and then when you take it away from her, loses her mind, right? And all she wants to do, because like I have a picture of her on there, right? Box. Yeah, that's what it is. And also probably not for nothing, it's she sees mommy and daddy, right? She's like, okay, this is the thing that like is hot for them, so it's I want to emulate, and it's already starting there. So I think this is great advice. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is, and nobody likes when I say it, we as humans are addicted to our cell phones, 100%. And we are creating a generation of addicts.
Yeah.
And this addiction is worse than alcohol. It's worse than drugs. It's worse than anything else, because it's basically controlling and taking over our lives, and we don't even realize it.
Yep. And the outcomes you're seeing over youth cohorts are pretty disturbing. Like really, truly affecting, their mental health, their emotional well-being, and it's because it's hard for adults like to cut the cord and whatnot. Like when it's inculcated into the younger cohorts, it's even worse, right? It's getting them younger, and it's like you said, if hey, we got mad at Joe Camel, right, back in the day, and we got rid of that for that level of addiction, or the vaping, right, like making fruity flavors to entice young kids, but yet this piece we're like, nah, it's no big deal, right? But it's worse. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, I sympathize. I don't know how I would have survived as a teenager today. And here's the reality: I was a geeky kid. I was bullied. I mean, I was bullied. I was put in lockers. People tried to set me on fire. I mean, I had a really rough time in high school. But here's the reality: it was 6 hours a day. When I went home, I wasn't bullied because I had my friends. When I was sleeping, I wasn't bullied. When I woke up in the morning, I wasn't bullied. On weekends, I wasn't bullied. Now our kids,
all the time,
they are bullied 24/7. If a kid is being bullied, they're being bullied online. When they go home, they're still getting harassing messages. When in the evening at 9 o'clock before they go to bed, they're being told by other people how they're a loser. And on weekends and evenings, and it's horrific how many kids are taking their lives because of cyberbullying. And I'll be honest with you, if I had a cell phone and I was bullied 24/7, I don't know if I could handle it. I don't know if I'd still be here. So we're allowing and tolerating the abuse. And cyberbullying is not just of kids. Adults are the worst bullying. I mean, you look at text messages that we send to each other. We are freaking abusive, but we've accepted it as a norm. So it's ridiculous what we've tolerated and allowed and created
through that medium, right? Just like that displacement of the classic keyboard warrior thing, right? Stuff you'd never say to another person, even on video, right? Like you take this away, and if we're all on a call or texting, it's a different beast. You're 100% correct. Yeah, I had a similar upbringing, and until found sports, and wrestling helped out a little bit, but I couldn't imagine. Like you put me back there, Dr. Cole. Like if it had not stopped at 3, good Lord, like that would be, and it's what's happening right? It's, the second they get home, they're getting dinged on whatever medium that they're on, and people are getting ganged up on, and it's hard.
Yep.
Well, there it is. Doctor's orders. The prescription is a day off the devices, a week,
digital detox,
no more than 10 apps.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
I like it.
Okay, I think we've run out of time there. So thank you very much, Dr. Cole. It's been an absolute joy speaking to you. If people want to keep up with you and what you're doing, where can they go?
So I joke, if you like what I'm saying and you're a fan and you want to support me, then it's Dr. Eric Cole, DrEriccole. If you don't like me and you want to send nasty messages, then it's either Omar or Robin on IG and target them. I'm joking. But yeah, Dr. Eric Cole is pretty much on all social media, DrEriccole. I'm a big fan of giving away free information. My company website is secure-anchor.com. My personal website is drericcole.org. And like I said, I'm all about helping people, giving free information and free knowledge. If you want to go quicker and faster, I do personal coaching for paid, but I always tell people, start with my free material first, see if that's helping you. And then if you want to go to the next level, you can, but I'm all about helping people. So download, I have 2 podcasts for free. Life of a CISO and Bulletproof Cyber. Start with my free material, see what you like, and then we can go from there.
Excellent stuff. All right. Well, as I said, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to possibly having you back sometime in the future. We've got plenty to talk about, so excellent stuff.
That would be amazing. I'd love to come back anytime. And once again, thanks for giving me a platform for helping the secure cyberspace. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a good one. Take care. Welcome back. Wonderful stuff. I've still got the dog with me. That is our show for today. That was very enlightening, interesting conversation with Dr. Cole there, wasn't it?
Energizing.
What did you? Yeah, I don't know quite why he's got a hell of a lot of energy, and actually he started off like almost at full throttle, and I will admit it took me back slightly. I was like, oh god, he's got some get up and go. But it's hard not to. It's infectious. You kind of you go with him, and I think that's we do need that in the cyberspace, because I think it's easy for people to get scared off by it.
And I think what really struck me was, I get, and this is probably one of the highest compliments I can pay, right, to a gentleman, and I hope Dr. Cole takes it as such. It gives me like our big bosses vibes, where it's like a long time in the industry, still jumps out of bed in the morning to go and do the absolute crackling job that he can do, and that you can't help but be inspired and want to run along with them when you see someone with that much knowledge and that much time in the field, and they're still they're not burnt out. They're not, oh, what the hell do we do it for, right? Because sadly, this is the type of industry that can do that to folks, where you go, listen, it's all for shit, and let's just jump off the cliff. But when you see,
I'd be lying if I didn't occasionally say
listen, it hits everyone. I'm not trying to pass judgment, and that's why I felt like it was so much soul nutrition there that I needed. It was a good shot in the arm there, and just again, like the throwaways that he was hitting us with, even like the little small one-liners. You're like, oh, there's depth even there. We could carve out another 10, 15 going down those rabbit holes, and that's where you can tell the difference of somebody who's been in the industry for that long, right? And still says, I want to continue to innovate, continue to look under rocks and help people. Like, that's the overwhelming sense that I got, and it was really awesome to talk to him.
Yeah, I have to admit that there's a couple of areas I didn't expect him to hit. The digital detox was one, and actually he just posted another video about that just this last day or two, which is an interesting watch there. But also the I was surprised by the simplicity of the best question you'd ever heard asked. Just how can I help you? And I think that's something that doesn't. It's something that does not happen enough in cyber teams. It's easy for it to get a bit
Cyber and
dogmatic.
tech, I think.
When you're and tech. When you're in one of those teams, it's easy for it to become one of those teams that does ask the how can I help you. It's easy for it to A, become second nature, B, become one of those things that you think is just the norm that everybody does, and you kind of forget that there's plenty that just see themselves as some sort of see themselves as some sort of authority as to say, you must do this, you must do that, tech must be done this way because we are the tech people and that's what we say needs to be done, and with complete disregard, or not even sort of tacit, deliberate disregard, just lack of appreciation for the fact that there is a user there, there is an end user there, a person, trying to do a job who has challenges with this stuff. And if you can work through those, you're much more likely to get cooperation, in a cyber context.
And innovation. I feel that
innovation,
the one piece that, and it's a phrase, right? My wife always busts my chops here because as a big agile guy, I want to delight the customer. That's always, and she goes, "Oh, delight the customer. That's even above." And I'm like, yes, purposely above and beyond.
You want to LinkedIn the customer.
Exactly, right? I want to just bring
you want to thrill the customer.
Yeah, right. I want him to be like, yeah, that time Omar came into my life, he brought bright techno-futurism, and I loved it. It's you can get different perspectives than you would just being in the field all the time and just seeing this is the one right way to do things, or this is the best practice. That phrase even, is starting to bug me more and more. But as you said, you can get that empathy with the user, but they could surprise you and go, listen, why don't we do it this way? And it's questions that you wouldn't have asked yourself having been in the field. So that two-way conversation that, as you said, right, bring it back to Dr. Cole, that he seems to engage in every day. He still asks himself that after 30 plus years of being in the field. Then there's no excuse for all of us to not have that be at the forefront of our interactions with folks.
Yeah, that's and that's, I mean, there's plenty of things that never really change, but I think one that's particularly relevant here is the notion of you will never run out of or have the last conversation with someone where there's not an appreciable chance of going, oh, you do it like that. That I can see how this doesn't work for you. And it might confuse you as to why they do that thing in the way that they do, and you might think that is suboptimal, or it's dumb, or it shouldn't be done that way. But the reality of the situation at the time is, well, that's how they do it, so that's the challenge that we've got to work with now. If there's a deeper underlying thing, then we can work with that. We can work through that over time, but we need something that addresses the security question now. And the same thing will come back the other way. It's very, very easy for people to think that everybody else knows how they work and operate and do their job, and everybody else does that same thing. So they end up with this just sort of common misalignment or misunderstanding of what works for each other, because nobody talks about it, because they all think it's obvious, and it's not.
No.
So, yeah. I said that's our show for today, probably a little bit too early there, didn't I? That truly is our show for today. We are out of time. We will be back again next week with just a short episode, just some news, and then after that, more guests, and as usual, the alternating schedule. Until then, though, please do stay cyber safe.
I do.
Bye bye.